Let me ask you something. When was the last time you heard any good news relating to Cartoon Network, or more specifically Warner Brothers? Scratch that actually, streaming in general. It feels like every other day some new catastrophic event happens that stirs everyone into a frenzy. Whether that's beloved and successful shows being canned or removed from streaming with no legal way to watch them, shows being canned before they're even given a chance, movies and TV shows being used for tax write-offs mid-production or sometimes when they're close to being finished, leading to them never seeing the light of day and everyone's time being wasted, yap. It's a dark time. And above all, the medium that is getting hit the hardest by all of this, I'm gonna go with malarkey, it sounds funny, is animation. Animation has never really been treated well by corporations for, well, ever. Crunch time, overworking animators to the brink of death, and being rewarded with enough money to put Skittles and ice soup on the table for a week. But things are incredibly dire nowadays, and you'd think after animation basically carried the industry out of bankruptcy during the pandemic that things would start looking up. However, that's a hopeful outcome, a word that in Hollywood means about as little as the word consent. Alright, I think we can save the corporate stuff for later. So, Cartoon Network. It's in a bit of a state right now, I won't lie. All of you watching know what Cartoon Network is, and you likely have a favorite Cartoon Network show you used to watch as a kid or still watch today as an adult. It's a network that many have very fond memories of, and back in the day it was arguably the best channel out of the big three of itself, Disney Channel /XD, and Nickelodeon, especially as Disney and Nick began airing more live-action programming. Cartoon Network has a massive library of iconic and beloved cartoons, and also Lego Chima, and throughout its numerous eras over its 31-year history, it has maintained its reputation as the go-to cartoon channel for all ages, something that for the past couple of years has unfortunately began to wither. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Cartoon Network has been on a steep decline as of recently. Not just the channel itself, naturally with streaming getting bigger the channel itself would suffer, but the brand in general. There's a lot of reasons for this, and before you get all uppity in the comment section, it's not because grah, cartoons were better when I was a kid. It's far more complex than that. If the network was failing because of the quality of its cartoons, then Teen Titans Go wouldn't still be standing after 11 years. It feels like for the past couple of years, Warner Brothers have been determined to kill basically every aspect of CN's brand, and it can only be described as a slow and painful death. Cartoon Network may not be literally dead, but figuratively, it's been cooked for a while. And with the recent removal of multiple of CN's heavy hitters from streaming for a reason that can be summed up as David Zaslav taking his hands off his cock to start shrugging at the camera, now seems like a pretty good time to talk about the decline of Cartoon Network. This is not going to be as long or high energy as my previous decline videos, I just really like the title for this one, leave me alone. For many years, Cartoon Network was renowned for its diverse and quality lineup of cartoons, many of which have stood the test of time and are still popular among kids and adults to this day. No matter what era of the channel, there was always a good number of shows airing that were iconic for their own reasons and helped to strengthen the network's brand and popularity. Love them or hate them, it cannot be denied that the majority of Cartoon Network's programming left their mark and are still popular today. The current era of Cartoon Network is f***ing boring, and it's not necessarily because of the quality of what's here. I mean, you can go on your 40th rant about why Teen Titans Go is the worst thing ever and killed your dog all you want, but compared to every other era of the network, this one is just lacking in any standout cartoons. Look back to previous eras of the network. The dawn of time, you had Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, Courage, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Kids Next Door, Billy and Mandy. Mid-2000s, you got Samurai Jack, Foster's Home, Ben 10, Chowder, Flapjack. 2010s, I mean, good god, I will not understand people who hate on 2010's Cartoon Network. You had Adventure Time, Regular Show, Gumball, We Bare Bears, Steven Universe, Over the Garden Wall. Does that count? I'm counting it. Infinity Train, OKKO. Admittedly, I'm just listing most of the ones that come to mind for me personally, and obviously not everyone likes these shows equally, and yes, each era had its low points. But the point is that no matter the era, there was always stuff to watch. Stuff that left an impact, stuff that immediately came to mind when you thought of Cartoon Network. What even airs on Cartoon Network today, not counting Adult Swim? I mean, Teen Titans Go really isn't that bad, especially now, but we're not having that discussion today. Craig of the Creek is pretty good and about to end, never mind. Fiona and Cake is amazing but didn't air on the network itself, so that doesn't count. Jellystone is fine. There's a baby show about We Bare Bears, I thought that fad died in the 2000s. Tiny Toons and Total Drama got revivals that I've heard no one talk about. Is that really it? I mean, there's some other shows that have either aired on the network itself or are streaming on Max, not for long anyway, but I don't think I've heard anyone talk about these ever. Either the marketing is just that bad, or there's really nothing here that's grabbing people's attention. There's really not much here. I mean, Craig of the Creek is a leftover from the 2010s and it's the best show in the current lineup, and that's ending soon. Where are the shows? There is nothing here. It's not like what's here is even bad, it's just that barely any of it stands out. There's no variety, no diverse lineup of shows that had their own strengths and aspects that set them apart, and to make this worse, I think we're about to enter an era that just lacks any original programming. Recently, there were a ton of Cartoon Network announcements about revivals of their previous shows. Not reboots, full-on revivals continuing what was already there. Now, stuff like Gumball coming back was just kind of expected because Gumball hasn't really been over. It aired its final episode a while back, but it ended on a cliffhanger that was going to be followed up by the movie. But given a new season is drawing closer and we have no word on the movie at all, I don't think it's coming out anytime soon. So yeah, Gumball being brought back is fine, and I don't think anyone is against having more Gumball in their lives. The other announcement, though, threw me off. A cliff. Regular show is getting a revival, and my god did the alarm bells start ringing with this one. Not that I doubt it'll be good, I'm sure they'll find some way to make it work, but not only did regular show end 7 years ago, but it ended perfectly, even if the final season itself wasn't that great. And this isn't the only IP that CN is bringing back from the dead, because they also have Craig McCracken on board to do his own Powerpuff Girls revival after the 2016 reboot kind of existed. And there's a new Foster's Home show too that's going to be aimed at preschoolers. I mean, okay, if that's what you want to do with Foster's, then sure. But do you guys see the problem here? The complete lack of original programming as is bad enough, but having to rely on previously established shows that ended years ago comes off as nothing more than desperate. I wouldn't mind this as much if we still had new and interesting shows coming out, but there's literally nothing. And who's to say it's gonna stop at just these shows? Any day now they could announce a new revival for anything at this point, so long as it makes them money. Now, is this a big problem for me personally? No, contrary to what some of you may think, I don't spend most of my time watching cartoons as much as I have a passion for animation. By the way, please watch Dan Da Dan, I've read the manga, it's really good. But it's sad to watch one of my favorite childhood channels crumble like this, and it makes me upset knowing that kids today aren't gonna get a similar lineup of bangers and new originals that kept me hooked as a kid. And that also sucks for adults too, because many of the best Cartoon Network shows have that multi-generational appeal and can be enjoyed by all ages. And I'm sick of living in a world where new ideas just aren't given a chance and companies just recycle the same IPs over and over again. I have no doubt that the revivals of Gumball, Regular Show, and even Powerpuff Girls will be good, but the network really needs something new. Beyond the current state of the network itself, it feels like Warner Bros. Is doing everything in their power to decrease the presence of Cartoon Network as a brand, despite how big and recognizable it is. It really feels like at every turn for the past couple of years, CN has been getting curb stomped out of relevancy, and a lot of it is purely cost-cutting reasons. It doesn't take a genius to figure out or even research that Warner Bros. Is knee-deep in debt, and David Zaslav's favorite pastime is trying to pull his company out of said debt, which is a Sisyphean task at this point, by being as comically evil as possible. Wanna know why the Cartoon Network Studios building in Burbank got shut down? Cost cutting. They don't want to pay for 2 buildings for their 2 animation studios, so they moved Cartoon Network to the Warner Bros. Animation building instead. And while I guess that makes sense as a cost cutting measure, it is a pretty on the nose metaphor for how figuratively dead Cartoon Network is. The original building that produced all of their classic and beloved cartoons is now shut down. A large and recognizable landmark and symbol in the industry just gone. And if you thought that was Jover enough, then let's look at all the other ways Cartoon Network is being completely stripped of its soul just to line Zaslav's pockets. This past summer, the official Cartoon Network website was shut down and now redirects to Max. At least in America anyway. We still have it in the UK, and I think some other regions may have it too, though to be frank, our version is a lot worse than the US version. But this was still a massive blow to the brand. Not only because of how many fond, nostalgic memories many of us have using this website as kids, either during our free time or playing games on it at school, etc., but again because of what it represented. Cartoon Network's soul being scrubbed from existence. I know it may sound off to give a large company a soul, but comparing what we knew of CN to current day Warner Brothers, yeah, no, CN had a soul, alright, at least in comparison to this joker. Also, as a side tangent, I find it really sad that so many safe online spaces for kids, such as the Cartoon Network website and Club Penguin, are just dropping like flies. These were high-quality, kid-friendly spaces that stopped kids from accessing other, more mature parts of the web that they shouldn't be seeing at their age. I don't think it's a strange coincidence that the uptick in children using websites like Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, etc. happened around the same time that these safe spaces started getting shut down. The Cartoon Network website, while a shell of its former self, was one of the last of these websites still standing, and now it's gone. And to my knowledge, I don't think many of the games were archived, and a lot of the website itself is now lost media. It's just really depressing to realize that we're heading towards a reality where kids don't have well-made, fun, and safe corners of the internet to use, and instead their only alternative is to access sites that they really should not be viewing or interacting with. Yes, YouTube has a kids version, but almost no one uses it, and the content on there is exploitative and deeply unsettling, so kids shouldn't be using it anyway. And now we get to the streaming side of things. Ever since Warner Bros. Merged with Discovery and Zaslav entered the picture, CN's been getting brutally backhanded with every move they make. Max, or HBO Max as it used to be known as, was once held in high regard as one of the best streaming services you could subscribe to because of Warner Bros.' extensive catalog of IP, and a big part of that was the sheer number of Cartoon Network shows featured on there. Basically everything was there from every era of the network. So many high quality and well regarded light-hearted cartoons from many people's childhoods, and many that people still enjoy today were all there and accounted for. Then Zaslav took over and things began to change. One by one, Cartoon Network's catalog began to decrease as many shows were removed from Max entirely, and given that some of them don't have many places you can legally purchase them from, this made some shows completely inaccessible for legal means. This practice of removing your own shows from your own streaming service has become a lot more common in recent years, and it's a very hard concept to wrap your head around at first, because why the hell would you even do that? Remove your own content from your own service? It seems completely counterintuitive, like you're just throwing money into a pit of fire, right? Unfortunately, this is just a clever but really scummy way for companies to get away with not paying the people involved with their production any residuals. They just can't be bothered to pay the people that made their hit shows the very small amount of residuals that they're owed, so they just remove the show entirely. Because of this incredibly greedy practice, it's led to an incredibly grim scenario where many shows are now incredibly hard to watch or straight up impossible to watch for legal means, and the creators of said shows are now publicly advocating for piracy if you're interested in watching them. And if you need another reminder about how grim things are right now, as I said at the start of the video, Max recently removed a ton of Cartoon Network's heavy hitters from their service. This included Chowder, Regular Show, The Amazing World of Gumball, We Bare Bears, and Steven Universe. I don't think I need to explain why this is mind-blowing, right? Whether you like these shows or not, it can't be denied that these are some of the most well-regarded and popular shows Cartoon Network have ever produced. Regular Show and Gumball are so popular, in fact, that they announced more episodes were in the f***ing works. Where is the sense in just removing all of this content? Surely paying the residuals isn't costing that much. I refuse to believe this practice is getting Warner Bros. Anywhere close to clearing the $50 billion of debt they're drowning in. In 2 years, the company's only cleared a fifth of that. By the time they get out of it, there's not going to be any f***ing content left. And to add insult to injury, to really hammer in how CN is being deprioritized, Max's brand spotlight places Cartoon Network around the middle to low end of it. Adult Swim and Boomerang are above it in terms of priority. It's just really sad. This point extends well beyond Cartoon Network, and it applies to, well, most of the animation industry at this point. Animators and artists who have worked on many of your favorite cartoons are currently unemployed in record numbers, and a big reason for this has been streaming. Not only does streaming allow corporations to see what's popular and chase trends at a much more efficient rate, renewing and cancelling on a whim, this trend chasing completely f***s with animation, given it takes far longer to make than the vast majority of shows. Big name streaming services have already built up massive libraries of content and are overly reliant on established and profitable IP, which also throws a wrench into things given original ideas can barely get off the ground now. And to add further insult to injury, layoffs in the animation industry are rampant right now, as studios are constantly trying to make their finances look better. As previously mentioned with Warner Bros. And Cartoon Network, this leads to extensive cost-cutting measures from the closing of the original Cartoon Network Studios building, the shutdown of the original website, and a constant removal of classic content from streaming services. All of this is topped off with staff being laid off en masse, and because of the lack of original animated programming being greenlit nowadays, as well as studios continuing to chase trends, there simply aren't enough jobs going around to make animation a sustainable career for most people. Last year, it was reported that around 30% of the Los Angeles animation workforce are unemployed, with that percentage only continuing to rise as more studios continue to cut costs in the most pathetic and desperate ways imaginable. Ever since the streaming bubble burst, it has spelled doom for the animation industry, as the big corporations get to keep making these decisions to cut costs and play things safe without any devastating or long-term financial consequences. David Zaslav, CEO of Warner Bros. And all-around dickhead, made $50 million last year while his company lost $3 billion. If something about that doesn't add up, that's because Warner Bros. Is solely focused on making sure its top executives and the CEO reap all the benefits of this destructive rampage they're on, while everyone else has to deal with their projects being shit-canned on a weekly basis and being left out of a job because, to be frank, there are no fucking jobs. This applies everywhere in animation right now, but in Cartoon Network's case, it especially hurts given just how bad the network and brand have been crippled these past couple of years under Zaslav's leadership. Oh, and this is all without mentioning the fact that working conditions for the animation are still subpar across the board. So even if you do get a job in the industry, it's very likely you'll either be treated like shit, forced to crunch, get paid close to nothing, or all of the above. Remember how big of a success Inside Out 2 was for Pixar this year? Massive crunch time, baby, and many people who slaved away on the movie were laid off before it was released and were unable to receive their bonuses, which many people working at Pixar rely on since Pixar is not unionized. It's for all of these reasons that people within the industry are louder than ever about securing a new deal for animation. The Animation Guild is still fighting for a new deal, and accounts like Animation Workers United have been helping to spread the word on the trials and tribulations faced by animators right now. You remember that hashtag RIP Cartoon Network short that went viral this summer? Yep, that was them. The most any of us can really do is also be vocal about our love of animation and our desire for a new deal. And to be fair, it does seem like progress is being made, just slowly, but there's likely still a long road ahead of any successful negotiations. And going back to the topic of the video, I think you can see why this has all had a substantial impact on the current state of Cartoon Network. The lack of original programming, the reliance on existing existing IP, the constant cost-cutting through means of essentially min-maxing the company's finances, which has led to the degradation of the network's brand and the complete and utter termination of its original soul. Make no mistake, while Cartoon Network isn't dead on the outside, it's been dead on the inside for a while, and all Warner Brothers continue to do is puppeteer its corpse as it slowly fades away from relevancy. I'm willing to bet that if things keep going in this direction for the next few years or so, Cartoon Network is just gonna cease to exist entirely. It means nothing now. I wanted to make this video longer, but I've said basically all I can really say at this point. Cartoon Network is at a very steep and painful decline. I wish I could have made this video more lighthearted, but it's just a sad state of affairs watching a network that was home to many of the shows that shaped who you are and kept you entertained as a kid be reduced to metaphorical rubble. Maybe one day Warner will snap out of it, maybe one day Cartoon Network will be on top of the world once again, who really knows for sure. But before that happens, things need to change within the industry, because the way things are right now is laughably unsustainable. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Actually don't play Yakuza this time, play Judgment. It's basically a Yakuza spin-off but with Ace Attorney stuff sprinkled in, it's great.